I cannot stress the importance of creating student-friendly learning targets. What do I mean by student-friendly? Well, when we use student-friendly language in the creation of learning targets, students clearly understand what is expected and they can easily track their progress towards that learning target or learning goal. I'm never one to miss an opportunity to integrate music, dance, theater, or visual art with anything we do in the classroom. So I think one of the best ways to integrate visual arts specifically with student-centered creation of learning targets is to have students at the beginning of the semester or beginning of the school year create an agomograph. That's a really big word. Agomograph is a technique that this artist, Yaacov Agam, is known for. It's a type of lenticular printmaking technique where when viewed from different angles or different sides or perspectives, the viewer sees two drastically different images. Mr. Agam is also known for his kinetic sculptures, including the fire and water fountain here in Tel Aviv that he created in 1986. And here's an example of the same print, Galaxy V or 5, viewed from different perspectives or different sides. So as the viewer moves, you're seeing different images. Mr. Agam has lived most of his life in France and was heavily influenced by other French artists. And so I would start the semester with my students teaching a mini lesson on the artist Agam and his technique creating an agomograph. After my students had sort of mastered who the artist was, had looked at a couple of his works, his prints, his sculptures, maybe even a YouTube video of his sculptures moving and seeing the different images from that perspective on the sculptures themselves, which, by the way, this fire and water fountain does rotate and different images can be seen as it rotates and spins. So maybe even watching a video. After my students had done that, I would ask them to think about creating two separate images that show a spark or learning or going from I don't have it to I do have it. So some students in the past that I've worked on this project with have created two different emojis, a sad face to an overjoyed face. Some students create a brain that looks like a normal brain, but then the second image of their brain, the synapses are clearly firing, it's colorful. And here's an example of a student that started with a piece of blank construction paper, and here is their first image. I actually think it's oriented this way, where they told me that the light bulb is turned off, and that's why there's a darker background to this light bulb. And then the second image to show their learning or understanding, the light bulb here is turned on and we see the color yellow, of course, and a little bit of orangey brown around the bulb itself. And so going from not knowing or understanding to knowing and understanding, which we'll come back to in just a minute. After I give my students some time to create two separate images, what I ask them to do is turn the first image over. And when they turn it over, if it's on a normal size piece of paper or a piece of construction paper, I would highly recommend either inch long or this is 1.5 inches long slats that they will be measuring out and eventually cutting. So once they measure out, this is 1.5 inches, every 1.5 inches they're gonna label A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. If your paper is, say, legal size, you would probably go up to about 11. And on image 2, they're gonna turn it over and B, 1 through 7. Now, the B and A can be a little bit confusing because for a lot of students, this looks like the before and this looks like the after. So even though this is my A sheet and this is my B sheet, it might get a little confusing. So you might want to put picture 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, picture 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. You probably hear thunder and lightning in the video, all mysterious because we don't know what's coming. We're creating an agomograph and it's raining here today. After your students have drawn their lines, inch, inch and a half, if it's a large sheet of paper, maybe even 2 or 3 inches, they're gonna cut. Now, I did not use their originals. I actually made copies because I felt bad asking students to cut their actual original art. So these are color copies that I made on the school printer. Shh, don't tell anybody. And they're gonna go ahead and cut strips all the way down, top to bottom. And they will end up with, for something like this, 7 strips. And they're gonna put those to the side. Ooh, it's getting so hot in here. No, I'm just kidding. This is a fan that I made the way that we all learned in probably 1st grade, where we fold it and then we fold it again and fold it again and fold it again, right? We're all familiar. I know I don't have to model this. Once students have created a fan on a separate, larger sheet of paper, and FYI, this is very important, this is a normal sheet of paper. This is double the width because we're going to end up laying A1, B1, A2, B2, and so on and so forth. So this needs to be twice as long or as wide, no matter, determined by how you orient the paper. And essentially, once they've created their fan, you'll lay it out flat and you'll have them label A1 all the way over to, oh, I'm missing a couple. If they have 7 slats that they've cut out or 7 long pieces, all the way to A7, B7. And notice I did not go A1, A2, A3. I'm alternating the A image, first slat, the B image, the first piece. The A image, the second piece, the B image, the second piece, and so on until I get to the end. Then, once students have cut out their strips of paper, and of course they're labeled on the back, they will affix their A1 piece to the A1 area. I like to use glue sticks for this. This should not take a lot of time. Probably the longest time is the image creation, followed by the cutting and making sure everything is in alignment. So once they have created their fan and attached their relevant images, you'll see what comes next. Stay tuned.